limited bandwidth. Anyone who has flown behind a panel full of glass in a technically advanced aircraft knows how easy it is to be overwhelmed by information. Yet many pilots seem to handle the data and their cockpit chores with grace and aplomb, and all without having extraordinary levels of brain processing power. And that's a good thing, because on the conscious level, our mental resources are, strikingly limited. I hate to tell you this, brace yourself, but you have a Stone Age brain. Don't feel bad. Everybody received the same starter package at birth. It seems that our brains haven't really developed much over the last 100,000 years, particularly in the area of short-term or working memory. For early man to survive, it apparently took no more than the ability to hold about 7 distinct items in his working memory at a time. Mastodon counts for 2. Now that's not much, but it was enough for Fred Flintstone. Unfortunately, the number 7 doesn't always work for pilots. Psychologist George Miller, in a now famous study on the limits of human information processing, found that we are able to keep about 7 distinct items in our head at any one time, and that's our working memory. In his book, The User Illusion, Tor Nortonders suggested that this represents the bandwidth of human consciousness of approximately 2.8 bits per second. And keep in mind that a binary on-off state represents 2 separate items, which is 1 bit. So 2 times itself, 2.8 times, is nearly 7. Of course, we can perceive many things in units of time smaller than a second, which increases this bandwidth slightly, but not by much according to many researchers. Sure, millions of bits of information may enter the brain, but the outward expression of our working memory's 7-item limit is, in a large way, how we define consciousness. This is one of the big reasons we can't simultaneously focus all our attention on copying a clearance and simultaneously evaluating our next rad readouts. Both activities have data points far exceeding 7 and far exceeding our mental resources. But wait. Aren't pilots supposed to be good at multitasking, focusing on 2 or more things at once? Well, I'm sorry to say that multitasking is an urban myth. Making it personal. Ian Fleming's Casino Royale describes the confusion that James Bond initially felt as a new 00 agent who is licensed to kill. Bond's troubles stemmed from his doubts about whether or not he was actually fighting for the cause of justice and doing good for humanity. He was so disturbed by his dilemma that he considered quitting MI6 until his French colleague Mathis intervened. "When you get back to London," Mathis said, "you will find there are a lot of other les shérifs, these are the bad guys, seeking to destroy you and your friends and your country. And now that you have seen a really evil man, you will know how evil they can be, and you will go after them to destroy them in order to protect yourself and the people you love. Surround yourself with human beings, my dear James. They are easier to fight for than principles." You see, Mathis instructs Bond that to do his job well, he has to make it personal. This is how to protect the people he cares about rather than concern himself with whether or not he's on the side of right or wrong. I think there's a lesson there for all pilots. Several years ago, I was preparing to give a flight review to a highly experienced pilot. We met for a ground review and then reconvened at the airplane. "Don't worry about the pre-flight," he said. "I've already done it." I replied, "Great, I'm just going to have another look around myself, if you don't mind." Apparently, he did mind, feeling insulted that I didn't trust him enough to do a pre-flight. Well, he didn't know that the pre-flight is something I take personally, always insisting on seeing for myself that the airplane is airworthy. It's how I protect myself and the passengers in my charge. Most reasonable people understand this. Over the years, I've written several articles highlighting the questions I've found most useful in helping to manage aviation risks. Each is significant in building a philosophy of conduct that helps us resist the temptation to do the wrong thing in an airplane. So let's begin with one of the 5 most important questions we can ask ourselves as a means of flying safer. Number 1, who do you fly for? Who do you fly for? Excuse me, you say? I'm not a commercial pilot. I don't fly for anyone. Well, that may not necessarily be true. Ed Viesturs is one of America's top mountain climbers. Once, during an interview, he was asked about his conservative approach to mountain climbing. The interviewer pressed him about why he refused to climb in certain weather conditions when climbers with similar experience made the ascent successfully. Viesturs' response was profound. He said that he didn't climb mountains for other people, he climbed them for himself. Imagine that. Here's someone who makes a living poking his head through the top of the atmosphere while simultaneously managing to keep it out of the clouds. He climbs mountains according to his rules to satisfy his own needs and not according to the dictates of the masses or the frenzy of the moment. Anyone who flies an airplane, even if he or she flies commercially, could learn something from Mr. Viesturs' response. There are many peripheral sources that can influence our behavior in an airplane, and not always favorably. Soldiers behave as they think soldiers should behave. Teenagers do the same, and pilots are no different. Being armed with an airplane creates the expectation you will fly, regardless of the weather conditions, personal fatigue, or mechanical uncertainty. And this tendency is compounded when you consider the time or monetary investment that you have in an airplane. If you can't fly when you want or need to, then the weight of the aluminum monkey on your back grows great as you face the fact that your personal investment isn't as useful as you thought it would be. It's like telling everyone you're a genius and then finding out that others expect you to act like one. You're a pilot, so others expect you to fly without understanding why you won't. That's why the idea of flying for ourselves and not for other people is so powerful. The question reminds us that we're not a scheduled airline, and our present skills and the equipment we fly establish a natural limit on what we can accomplish in an airplane. If we know for whom we fly, ourselves, then we're more likely to act rationally and not according to some idealized, romanticized, or scripted version of piloting behavior.